Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for returning. I really appreciate it. And if you are a first-time viewer, it's great to have you here. I hope you stick around at least until the end of the video. So, what are we talking about today? Glad you asked. Today, we shall look at a trio of trilogies. Now, the first book in our trio of trilogies will be The Drive-In by Joe Lansdale. So, you're probably thinking, have you gone mad? That's one book. It's not three books. In fact, it is three books because there's a drive-in trilogy, and this volume here collects all three. And it's a pretty good deal because when I was looking for the drive-in, some of the volumes I saw on Amazon were actually quite expensive, if I remember correctly. And this was a nice, reasonably priced copy. Obviously, it's softback, and it contains all three books in one. So it wasn't a bad deal. So if you want to read all three, I would really recommend you just picking up a copy of this one here, picking up this copy. So anyway, The Drive-In, what's it about? Well, first of all, it centres around a drive-in, and if you are not familiar with it, I'm sure you are. You know, the Americans had, or have, I don't know if they still do it, this barbaric practice of going to the cinema in your car. You know, you rock up there in your car, you park in front of a big screen, and you watch the film there, usually with a date. Okay, so very much an American tradition. And so what happens in the first book? In the first book, there are a group of friends that go to the drive-in, and then something weird happens, and then people can't leave the drive-in. So you've got this drive-in, you know, all the people are trapped in there. The only resources they've got are the resources they brought with them. They didn't know they were going to be trapped in a drive-in indefinitely, so they obviously didn't pack for that. And there's also a kiosk dispensing refreshments, and there's the film screen. That's it. So what could possibly be bad about a situation like that? Well, you have to read this book to find out. So basically it goes like this. Book 1 and Book 2, they both centre around the drive-in. Book 3 kind of moves away from the drive-in. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I'm just giving you the basics of what happens. And Book 3, I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy Book 3 as much as the first two, where they were actually centred in the drive-in. But at the end of Book 3, there's a really, really nice twist that I honestly didn't see coming. And I'd be surprised if most people did, because it's really comes out of left field, so to speak. So that's Joe Lansdale's The Drive-In. As I say, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. I would recommend it. It's a good fun read. The only thing I would say is it's like I say, it's a good fun read. I didn't find it scary at all. I didn't, and you know, it's very much you know, you can have a popcorn movie. I think it's kind of a popcorn book. Joe Lansdale is a great writer, and I think the only thing I'd say perhaps negatively was, you know, the whole driving thing does start to get a bit old, you know, in the second book, because there's only so much you can really do centered around people being trapped in a limited area like that. Okay, so that's the first book in the first of books, the first trilogy in the trio. Okay. Next up, we have Wayward Pines by Blake Crouch. I'm just looking for book 1. So here we have book 1, Wayward Pines by Blake Crouch, book 1. We have book 2. And we have book 3. So as in most trilogies, there are 3 of them. So this trilogy here is very much interconnected, in the sense that, you know, in some trilogies you can read the first part, and even though it's part of a story, it's quite, excuse me, I'm sweating like a beast here, it's self-contained. That's not really true of this book. If you're going to read this, I would recommend you to get all 3 books in advance, and then just read through the whole story, because it's one story spread over 3 books, if that makes sense. You know, it's not, you can't just read the first, you have to read the first one first, in the sense that you can't, it's not one of these things where you can just dive in. Oh, it's book 2 in the series, I'll just dive in. It's not a self-contained story in each one. So you have to read all three. So what's it about? So obviously there's a town called Wayward Pines, hence the title Wayward Pines. And it's an absolutely idyllic little town in the middle of nowhere. And basically what happens is there's a policeman and he is sent to Wayward Pines because one of his colleagues was sent there and she disappeared. So he's sent to Wayward Pines. As soon as he arrives, he's caught up in a car accident. He wakes up in hospital and he soon begins to realise there's something fishy going on. And the story basically goes from there because at first he's completely disoriented. He doesn't know what's going on. And obviously you, the reader, don't know what's going on either. You know, you just know that he's gone to this town and nothing seems to be what it appears to be. So I would say it's a fairly good read. I'm not going to tell you anything else because I don't want to spoil any of the surprises. Suffice to say that Wayward Pines is a very particular town. And, you know, the protagonist, when he first wakes up, he quickly realizes that he isn't supposed to leave for some reason. It's a decent read, I would say. It's good sort of like light-hearted fun. It's horror. I mean, the driving is horror as well. It's horror, but it's not really. I didn't find it scary. Found it enjoyable. Good kind of fun read. Characterization was okay. You know, just it's a fairly kind of like light kind of horror, really, I would say. Okay, excuse me, giving you the cold shoulder. Next up, the third book in the third trilogy in the trio. God, it's a real tongue twister. We have got The Passage by Justin Cronin. It's book one, so nice big chunky one. Then we have book 2, The 12, and then we have book 3, The City of Mirrors. Okay, so basically, this is for me, this is hands down the best trilogy on this particular list by far. You may have heard of The Passage because there was also a TV adaptation of it. I don't think it did very well. I think there was one season and then it was cancelled. I haven't watched it, but I did see some clips of it and it doesn't do the book justice. Now, I'll give you a basic rundown of what happens. So essentially it's a kind of post-apocalyptic story. You've got human survivors and they're the survivors of a viral outbreak. It's the typical kind of story. There's a virus, it turns people into monsters, yada, yada, yada. There's nothing particularly, shocking or original about that plotline. And you've got people trying to survive against that. Okay, it's like so many horror ideas, there's only so many tropes, really. There's only so many ideas. But the execution is superb. It's astonishingly written. Each of these books would require an in-depth review in and of themselves, and basically a good thing about this is that the fact is that it is one long continuous story, but each book is very, very, very dense. And each book, it's not exactly a self-contained story, but each book brings something to a conclusion before moving and simultaneously introduces the next thing as well, if you get what I mean. I'm sure you do. So I can't praise this trilogy enough. I mean, from a horror point of view, it's superb, but just from a literary point of view, it's also superb. I think that from looking around on BookTube or what have you, I don't think that this series really gets enough. I don't want to say respect because it is absolutely superb. I mean, it's got everything. It's very, very, very. Justin Cronin's a superb writer. It's very well written. It's tense. It's exciting. It's moving. The characterization is superb. You never feel like you're reading about like just two-dimensional characters who have just been cobbled together to move the story along. It's just, and as I say, as a trilogy, it's extremely dense. Extremely dense. Each of these books is extremely dense. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's a really, really superb read. So anyway, that's my trio of trilogies, okay? I hope you enjoyed my somewhat rambling review. someone in my comments recently said that my reviews ramble. You know who you are, Jody. And it's true, they do ramble. This is completely unscripted, as you may have been able to tell. Sorry, I'm sweating like a beast here. God. So anyway, that brings us to our conclusion for today. Thank you for watching. If you got this far in the video, I salute you. And see you on the next video. Bye.